Imagine living in a world where having godlike powers literally gets you cancelled, sued, and forced into a depressing 9-to-5 desk job. That is exactly what happened to the legendary supers before the government officially wiped out their entire legacy. Welcome back, chat. Today we are breaking down how Mr. Incredible went from peak main character energy to absolute rock bottom. Back in the golden age, every hero had to keep an alter ego secret just to survive the non-stop chaos. Elastigirl jokes that navigating normal everyday life in full costume would be an insane disaster. Meanwhile, Mr. Incredible is low-key exhausted because no matter how many times he saves the city, it immediately gets threatened again. Even with the heavy burden on his shoulders, the guy is still thriving at the absolute peak of his heroic career. Elastigirl makes it crystal clear that saving the planet is definitely not just a job for the men. Suddenly, a high-speed police chase erupts across the city, but Bob is so confident he decides he has plenty of time. Before taking down the armed gunman, he literally takes a quick detour to help a distressed lady get her cat out of a tree. He casually rips the entire tree out of the ground to hand the kitten back with zero effort. The public absolutely adores him, but his jam-packed schedule is already getting ridiculously tight. Out of nowhere, an overly obsessed kid named Buddy Pine sneaks into his car claiming to be his ultimate sidekick, Incredible Boy. Bob brushes off the fanboy and heads straight to a robbery, only to run right into Elastigirl. The two heroes instantly start throwing hilarious banter back and forth over who actually caught the thief. She gives him a smooth flirtatious warning, telling him that raw strength is not the only thing that matters. Bob leaves the criminal hanging on a wall hook, casually letting him know the trash collector is on the way. His best buddy Frozone slides into the scene to remind him that he is running wildly late for his own wedding. Before Bob can head out, a man named Oliver Sansweet jumps off a roof in a suicide attempt. Bob tackles the guy mid-air through a glass window to save his life, but the villain Bomb Voyage ambushes them. That annoying fanboy Buddy flies in on homemade rocket boots, utterly sabotaging Bob's tactical situation. Buddy refuses to listen, completely ignoring the fact that Bomb Voyage just attached an explosive charge directly to his cape. Bob grabs the kid's cape to save him, but the bomb detaches and blows up a massive section of elevated train tracks. Bob uses his bare hands to stop a speeding train from plummeting off the shattered tracks, saving hundreds of passengers. He tries to explain to the arriving police officers that Bomb Voyage escaped because of the kid's reckless interference. Bob makes it explicitly clear to the cops that Incredible Boy has zero affiliation with him before sprinting away. He bursts into the church in a desperate rush, barely making it to the altar in time. Frozone quietly points out that Bob is still wearing his domino mask right in front of the priest. The minister begins reciting the official marriage vows as Helen gives Bob a playful side-eye. She warns him that if their marriage is going to survive, he has to be willing to be a real partner, not just a superhero. The priest officially pronounces them husband and wife while the crowd goes wild cheering for the iconic power couple. Bob smirks and says that since they are superheroes, nothing could possibly go wrong with their future. Fast forward a short time later, and a catastrophic wave of media news rocks the entire country. It turns out the suicidal jumper Bob saved hired a top-tier lawyer and filed a massive lawsuit against Mr. Incredible. The plaintiff screams in open court that he never asked to be saved and that Bob ruined his life. To make matters worse, the injured train victims follow suit, resulting in millions of dollars in legal damages. Public sentiment shifts overnight, forcing the government to give superheroes a brutal ultimatum. Under extreme political pressure, official authorities quietly launched the Superhero Relocation Program. All supers are granted full legal immunity for past acts in exchange for promising to permanently retire. They are forced to abandon their heroic identities forever, blending seamlessly into everyday suburban life. 15 years later, Bob is completely cooked, grinding away at a soul-crushing insurance firm called InsureCare. He sits trapped in a tiny claustrophobic cubicle, forced to reject claim payouts to broke, helpless citizens. Helen calls his desk phone to celebrate that she finally finished unpacking their endless moving boxes. She playfully jokes with him to go save the world one corporate insurance policy at a time. Deep down inside, Bob still possesses that undeniable hero instinct, so he secretly starts helping an old lady. He quietly whispers precise legal loopholes to her while pretending to sternly enforce company policy out loud. His corrupt tiny boss, Mr. Huff, immediately catches on and hauls Bob straight into his office. Mr. Huff snaps at him, furiously complaining that approving payouts is destroying the company profits. Meanwhile across town, Helen gets called into the principal's office because their son Dash is causing total chaos. His petty teacher, Bernie Kropp, frantically accuses Dash of putting sharp thumbtacks on his chair using super speed. Bernie pulls out hidden camera footage, trying to prove that the tack magically appears the exact millisecond Dash moves. The teacher literally loses his mind screaming in front of the principal, but since there is no solid proof, Dash walks free. During the car ride home, Helen gives Dash a stern lecture about abusing his inherited super speed. Dash begs his mom to let him join school sports, promising he will hold back and only win by a tiny margin. Helen shuts him down completely, explaining that society demands they act completely ordinary to avoid suspicion. Dash complains that their powers are supposed to make them special, but Helen refuses to let him flex. She drops an incredible reality check on him, saying that claiming everyone is special is just another way of saying no one is. They pick up their shy daughter Violet, who is currently dealing with massive insecurity and a giant crush on a boy. Later that night at dinner, Bob is so emotionally drained from his midlife crisis that he barely pays attention. When asked about his day, Dash tries to dodge the truth by bringing up a random science class dissection. Helen instantly exposes him, telling Bob that Dash got sent to the principal for pranking his teacher again. Instead of being angry, Bob is low-key impressed that his son managed to outsmart high-speed camera footage. Bob gets excited and starts asking Dash how ridiculously fast he had to run to pull off the prank. Helen glares at Bob in disbelief, causing Bob to accidentally shatter his dinner plate with his unchecked super strength. Violet sits quietly at the edge of the table, acting completely distant while picking at her food. She complains about the dinner menu, completely unaware that Dash is about to expose her secret crush. Dash starts relentlessly mocking her about a boy named Tony Ridinger, sending Violet into an absolute rage. Helen screams at them to stop, but the sibling rivalry instantly erupts into a full-blown superhero showdown. Bob tries to yell over the chaos while secretly trying to read the local newspaper at the table. Dash zooms around the room at super speed while Violet pops out an invisible force field to block his attacks. Helen physically stretches her arms across the entire kitchen to grab both kids, showcasing total suburban madness. Amidst the insane chaos, Bob spots an ominous article headline stating that their old ally Gazerbeam is missing. Helen demands that Bob step up right now and discipline his children before the house gets destroyed. She begs him to intervene, but right at that exact moment, the doorbell magically rings to break the tension. It turns out to be their close friend Lucius, who casually walks into the house throwing out smooth ice puns. Lucius uses his freezing powers to make a cup of crushed ice for Dash, who loves watching it explode. Helen bids Lucius farewell as he and Bob head out, claiming they are simply going to a casual bowling night. She warns Bob that they are definitely not done discussing Dash's behavior, knowing full well that keeping this super family normal is an impossible task. Back at the dinner table, the vibe is totally cooked as Dash and Violet vent about being forced to hide their powers. Meanwhile, Bob and his buddy Lucius are secretly hanging out, reminiscing about the old villain days when bad guys would literally monologue instead of finishing the job. They pretend to go bowling every week, but low-key, they just want to relive their prime superhero glory. Lucius warns Bob that sneaking around in the dark is super risky, but Bob's addiction to heroic clout is way too strong. When the scanner crackles with a fire report, Bob loses his mind with excitement and drags Lucius straight into danger. They leap into a burning building to save trapped victims, but Lucius realizes his ice powers are totally useless without humidity. With zero moisture in the blazing air, Bob has to rely on pure muscle to keep the roof from collapsing on them. Bob smashes through a brick wall just seconds before the whole structure crumbles into ash. They accidentally break into a jewelry store to trigger the sprinkler system, making them look like absolute rookie thieves. A nervous cop pulls a gun on Lucius, who is just desperately trying to get a sip of water from a cooler. The moment Lucius hydrates, he instantly freezes the cop solid in a block of ice, allowing them to make a high-stakes escape. Lucius swears off vigilante night shifts forever, realizing they dodged a massive scandal by a hair. Little do they know, a mysterious observer named Mirage has been tracking Bob's every move from the shadows. When Bob sneaks back home late at night, Helen is waiting in the dark with full main character intensity. Bob tries to brush off the concrete dust on his shoulders as a quick workout, but Helen sees right through his lie. Helen screams that one more mess will force their entire family to pack up and vanish into thin air again. She accuses Bob of ignoring their real life just so he can chase his washed-up superhero dreams. Bob retaliates by roasting the school system for celebrating basic participation instead of real talent. He complains that society punishes kids like Dash for being naturally exceptional. Bob wants Dash to join track and crush everyone, but Helen refuses to let him flex his superspeed in public. The shouting gets so loud that Dash and Violet creep out of their bedrooms to watch the drama unfold. Bob desperately tries to pull the parent card and act like they are completely united, but the awkwardness is palpable. The next day at InsureCare, Bob is stuck back in his soul-crushing day job, feeling absolutely defeated. His tiny, power-hungry boss, Mr. Huff, hauls him into the office for a total verbal beatdown. Huff is furious because Bob keeps helping regular citizens find sneaky legal loopholes to get their claims paid. The greedy boss hates that Bob is putting ordinary people above corporate profits and company stockholders. Huff delivers an insanely toxic speech about how Bob is supposed to be a brainless cog in the corporate machine. As Huff rants about cogs and clocks, Bob spots a defenseless old man getting violently mugged right outside the window. Bob's hero instincts flare up instantly, and he begs Huff to let him go intervene. Instead of caring, Huff cold-heartedly threatens to fire Bob on the spot if he takes one step out that door. When the mugger gets away cleanly, Bob's temper completely explodes in a split second. Bob grabs Huff by the throat and hurls him through 4 drywall barriers, sending the boss straight to the ICU. In the aftermath, Rick Dicker from the Superhero Relocation Program shows up to scrub the giant mess. Rick reveals that covering Bob's chaos has cost taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars. He drops a devastating bomb, the government is done bailing Bob out, and he is officially on his own. Rick offers one last relocation move, but Bob refuses to uproot his wife and kids all over again. So Bob packs up his cubicle in total silence, fully cooked with no job and no backup plan. He stares out at a neighborhood kid on a tricycle, both of them waiting for something magical to fix their lives. Suddenly, a mysterious black package inside his briefcase lights up and scans Bob's retina. A glamorous video recording of Mirage pops up, proving she knows his true secret identity. She explains that she represents a top-secret division testing experimental top-tier military technology. Mirage reveals that a rogue project has gone out of control on a secluded private island. The rogue machine is threatening to destroy multi-million-dollar facilities unless a real super handles it. She offers Bob an insane payout worth triple his entire corporate salary for just one solo mission. Mirage gives him 24 hours to respond, reminding him that he was built for greatness, not cubicle life. The gadget suddenly explodes into smoke, setting off the fire alarms and causing mass panic at home. During dinner, Helen notices how hyper-focused Bob seems and gently checks in on him. Bob panics and cooks up a cover story, claiming his company is sending him out of town for a work conference. Helen gets super emotional, believing Bob's soul-crushing hard work is finally getting recognized by management. She gives him her full support, totally unaware that he is stepping back into full-blown danger. Bob dials the secret contact number and officially accepts the covert mission. Mirage briefs Bob that his target is the Omnidroid 9000, a hyper-intelligent AI battle tank. The robot became self-aware, broke its programming, and took over the entire tropical island. With all staff evacuated, Bob has to drop into the drop zone completely solo with zero backup. Bob gets launched out of a stealth jet inside a giant pod, plummeting 5,000 feet straight into dense jungle. His strict objective is to disable the multi-million-dollar AI without destroying its valuable hard drive. Mirage warns him that every second he spends fighting, the Omnidroid adapts to his combat style. Bob lands in the jungle, out of shape and heavily outmatched, but ready to show off his main character energy. Suddenly, the terrifying clawed sphere attacks, throwing Bob around like a ragdoll and popping his bat back into place. Bob outsmarts the machine by tricking it into ripping out its own central power core. Impressed by his clutch victory, Mirage invites Bob to a lavish dinner inside a high-tech volcanic lair. When Bob asks about her mysterious boss, Mirage plays it slick and keeps his true identity totally classified. She drops a cryptic hint that her enigmatic employer is heavily obsessed with raw power. Bob flirts back, soaking in the high-life hype after months of spirit-crushing unemployment. Bob heads back home brimming with confidence, pretending to leave for another corporate workday. He secretly visits Edna Mode, the legendary fashion icon who designs gear exclusively for top-tier supers. Edna takes one look at Bob's out-of-shape physique and utterly roasts him without skipping a beat. She vents about how boring high-fashion supermodels are compared to designing suit tech for literal gods. Bob asks her for a quick patch job on his iconic blue supersuit, but Edna refuses to do cheap work. Edna trashes his torn suit as a total fashion disaster and insists on crafting him a brand new masterpiece. She preaches her golden rule of life: never look at the past because it distracts from the present. Bob tries to play modest, but Edna aggressively takes the project into her own hands. Bob suggests adding a classic hero cape like Dynaguy used to wear back in the day. Edna shuts him down instantly, exploding into a passionate rant about why capes are a total death trap. She recounts how former heroes got dragged into missile fins, sucked into jet turbines, and killed instantly. She lists disaster after disaster caused by capes, proving they are a complete safety hazard for real combat. Edna promises his cutting-edge suit will be finished soon, leaving Bob hyped for his next big mission. Bob gets the secret call and his low-key shady behavior is officially spiraling completely out of control. He hits the jet, enjoying the ultimate VIP hero treatment like he is an absolute king. Mirage drops the coordinates, setting up what Bob thinks is just another regular paid mission. Meanwhile, back home, Helen smells something fishy and calls up the iconic Edna Mode to get answers. Edna is pure main character energy, hyped to hear from her after all these silent years. Helen starts digging into who patched Bob's original suit, utterly clueless about what Edna has been cooking. Edna demands Helen slide to her place immediately because the drip she designed is way too fire to wait. She sets the timer, forcing Helen into an epic confrontation with the ultimate fashion mastermind. Back on the island, a gigantic killer robot pops out and Bob realizes he is officially cooked. Out pops the villain, dropping a villainous truth bomb about how he used former heroes as literal test dummies. The main villain unveils his identity as Buddy, the former superfan Bob crushed years ago. Buddy snaps, dropping his past name and officially introducing his menace villain identity, Syndrome. Syndrome spills the backstory on how Bob's rejection completely shattered his spirit and turned him dark. Bob's cold old slogan lives in Syndrome's head rent-free, driving 15 years of pure revenge. Syndrome explains his twisted worldview after realizing childhood heroes will drop you without a second thought. He thrives on pure toxic energy, demanding respect through sheer absolute terror and chaos. His master plan is straight wild, creating artificial threats to sell himself as the world's ultimate savior. Syndrome gets so lost in his villain rant that Bob gets a split second to pull off a savage countermove. Syndrome activates high-tech stasis beams, paralyzing Bob in mid-air with zero effort. Syndrome gloats hard, flexing his unmatched gadgets right in Mr. Incredible's helpless face. The disrespect is off the charts as Syndrome blasts Bob flying down into a dark waterfall abyss. Syndrome hurls a homing bomb down the river, trying to erase Bob from existence once and for all. Bob barely dodges by hiding behind skeleton remains, fooling Syndrome's cold technology into declaring him dead. Bob stumbles upon the horrifying underwater computer database revealing his superhero homies were all wiped out. Cut back to Edna, who flexes how designing for superheroes completely took over her legendary routine. Edna takes Helen into her super high-tech lab to display the masterpiece gear she just crafted. Edna cuts off Helen's panic because she knows actions speak way louder than talking. She opens up the vault, revealing state-of-the-art super suits tailored for the entire Parr family. First up is Jack's Fit, designed to handle insane unpredictable elements like absolute light work. She breaks down the specs, proving the baby suit can survive wildfire and intense explosions. The suit is completely bulletproof, insane high-tech, and super low maintenance for busy parents. Edna stays 3 steps ahead of everyone, prepping for crazy powers that haven't even manifested yet. Helen insists her baby is totally normal, completely oblivious to what is actually going down. Dash's suit is built to handle hyperspeed friction without burning up or catching fire. Violet's suit goes completely invisible right along with her, pushing stealth tech to the literal max. Helen's own iconic suit can stretch for miles without tearing while keeping ultimate elite comfort. Edna reveals a secret tracker installed in every suit, giving away exact GPS coordinates globally. Helen freaks out, realizing Bob has been secretly sneaking off doing superhero ops behind her back. Edna drops a reality check, completely unfazed that Bob was keeping massive secrets from his wife. Edna warns Helen that middle-aged heroes tend to act wild and do reckless moves when feeling washed. Helen's heart hits the floor as the horrifying truth settles in that Bob might be in real danger. Meanwhile, Bob sneaks into Syndrome's base, taking out guards like a stealthy phantom operator. Helen calls Bob's supposed employer, ready to track down her lying husband once and for all. The secretary drops the ultimate bomb, revealing Bob was fired months ago and has been lying straight to her face. Helen breaks down in tears, thinking her marriage is dead in the water and completely cooked. Edna presses the homing button on the suit, locking right onto Bob's active location on the secret island. Helen cries her eyes out, feeling totally betrayed and helpless about Bob's secretive double life. Edna hits her with the iconic rolled-up newspaper smack, telling her to stop crying and step up. Edna delivers the ultimate pep talk, commanding Elastigirl to reclaim her main character status and save her man. Energized and locked in, Helen gears up, ready to slide straight into enemy territory like an absolute boss. She packs her gear at home, trying to play it cool while hiding the wild truth from the kids. Dash and Violet spot the slick matching super suits, realizing their mom is hiding something massive. Dash tries on his mask, totally hyped about his brand new super identity. Helen calls in an old favor, securing a high-speed private jet to fly out to the uncharted island. Helen flies into restricted airspace, locked in and focused on finding her husband. Meanwhile, Bob gets caught inside Chrono's computer room, captured by Syndrome's relentless security team. Syndrome gloats hard after discovering Bob used dead super bones to mask his heat signature. Syndrome checks his radar and realizes someone triggered a tracking beacon straight to the island. Syndrome spots Helen's incoming jet, assuming Bob called in heavy military backup. Without hesitation, Syndrome orders automated defense missiles to target and eradicate the incoming aircraft. On board the jet, Helen turns around and realizes her kids secretly stowed away in the back. The kids reveal they hired a super-eager teenage babysitter to watch baby Jack while they snuck off. Babysitter Carrie is back home rambling on the phone, completely unbothered while prepping Mozart for the baby. She flexes her babysitting credentials while totally unaware of the chaotic superpowers waiting inside Jack. Back in the air, warning alarms blare as heat-seeking missiles lock straight onto Helen's plane. Bob hears the transmission over the comms and desperately begs Syndrome to abort the strike. Syndrome coldly rejects Bob's pleas, letting the lethal missiles ride out to total destruction. Helen screams at Violet to deploy a defensive force field, but the teenage hero panics under pressure. Helen desperately broadcasts over open comms that innocent kids are inside, but the island defenses do not care. With seconds to spare, Helen morphs her elastic body into a protective parachute to shelter her children. The missiles detonate, blowing the jet to smithereens as fire and debris rain down over the ocean. Helen pulls the traumatized kids out of the ocean, laying down harsh reality checks so they don't lose control. Back in the villain lair, Syndrome celebrates thinking he just wiped out Bob's entire rescue squad. In a fit of pure blind rage, Bob grabs Mirage, threatening to snap her neck if Syndrome does not yield. Syndrome calls his bluff, proving Bob is way too heroic to ever murder an unarmed hostage in cold blood. Helen hides the kids safely in a nearby cave, passing down crucial masks to guard their super identities. She warns them that real-life villains do not play fair like Saturday morning cartoons. Helen puts Violet in charge, trusting her to unleash her latent powers if danger comes knocking. Meanwhile inside the base, Mirage feels deeply shaken after seeing Bob spare her life despite Syndrome's cold betrayal. Back on the island, Dash and Violet are sneaking around like low-key secret agents trying to figure out Syndrome's shady setup. But Dash being Dash starts messing with the tech, causing the base AI to lock down and flag them immediately. Alarms start blaring everywhere, setting off total panic mode across the whole island facility. Meanwhile, Bob is still locked up in chains, feeling completely cooked and crushed by guilt. Suddenly, Helen sneaks into the holding room, giving him the shock of his entire life. Instead of a romantic reunion, Helen instantly calls him out for keeping huge secrets and acting suspicious. But when Bob realizes the alarm was triggered by their kids, his parental instincts go straight into hyperdrive. Helen drops the truth bomb that Dash and Violet stowed away on her jet, so they need to save them ASAP. Meanwhile, island guards surround the jungle, closing in on the kids with zero chill. Violet screams at Dash to use his super speed, unleashing his inner speed demon for the first time without holding back. Dash literally flexes on these guards, sprinting across water and leaving them looking totally goofy. Helen and Bob race through the jungle, low-key arguing about their marriage while dodging security lasers. A guard corners Violet, but Dash swoops in with ultimate main character energy to save his sister. Dash lands a hit on the guard while Violet discovers how to project force fields in mid-combat. They combine powers seamlessly, showing off elite synergy before running straight into their parents. The family has a heartwarming group hug right in the middle of the jungle battleground. But before they can even celebrate, Syndrome pulls up with his zero-point energy beam and freezes them all in place. Syndrome is absolutely petty, flexing that he beat the legendary Mr. Incredible and his entire super family. He locks the whole family in high-tech holding cuffs back at his volcano lair like ultimate villain trophy prizes. Syndrome starts yapping his whole villain manifesto, flexing how he built himself up without any natural powers. He reveals his twisted endgame to sell super tech to everyone so nobody is special anymore, total diabolical behavior. He launches his final upgraded Omnidroid rocket directly toward Metroville to play the fake hero role. Syndrome leaves them trapped, floating away like a toxic ex after delivering his big evil speech. With the giant rocket soaring into the sky, Metroville is about to get wrecked big time. Trapped in zero-gravity cuffs, Bob breaks down and delivers a tear-jerking heart-to-heart to his family. He admits his ego almost ruined everything and calls his family his greatest adventure of all. Moved by his realization, Violet uses her expanding force field to shatter the cuffs and break everyone free. They sprint straight into Syndrome's empty control room looking for a way off the island. Realizing standard jets won't cut it, they decide to hijack Syndrome's spare escape rocket. Mirage steps up to help them, keying in the mainframe password and securing their flight launch. Meanwhile, back in Metroville, Lucius is trying to get into the action but his suit is missing. Honey is not having it at all, dropping iconic lines while he begs for his gear. Lucius preaches about the greater good, but Honey reminds him she is the ultimate authority in that house. Back in Metroville, Syndrome attempts to fake fight his Omnidroid, but the AI turns on him instantly. Syndrome gets yeeted into a building by his own robot, completely proving he was never ready for real hero work. The Parr family crashes down into the city using an RV hitched to a rocket, pulling up in pure chaotic style. Helen navigates the city streets like a wild soccer mom on a mission, giving top-tier driving orders. They land hard, strap in, and head straight toward the ongoing destruction in the financial district. The driving directions get insanely chaotic as Bob tries to navigate downtown traffic mid-crisis. After a crazy drift through the city lanes, they pull up right in front of the giant rogue robot. Dash is thriving off the adrenaline rush, completely obsessed with the superhero squad lifestyle. Bob tells Helen to stay back with the kids to keep them safe, but she shuts that nonsense down fast. She reminds him they are a unit, locked in for better or worse no matter how high the stakes get. Bob finally admits his true fear: he was terrified of losing them again because he felt too weak alone. Helen reassures him that together they are unstoppable, giving him the confidence boost he desperately needed. With their bond restored, the Parr family steps up to face the Omnidroid as a unified hero squad. Frozone slides onto the scene with ice tracks, hype level going straight through the roof. Bob spots Syndrome's fallen wrist remote on the pavement, realizing it holds the controls to the robot. They toss the remote around like a high-stakes football game to keep it out of the robot's line of sight. Helen uses her stretch powers to snag the remote, but activating it accidentally makes the robot rage even harder. Bob realizes the robot's hull is indestructible, meaning the only thing that can pierce it is its own rocket claw. Frozone freezes the robot's tracks to buy crucial seconds while Bob sets up the trick shot. They scramble with the buttons on the remote, trying to target the claw right at the Omnidroid's main core. Bob waits for the ultimate opening as the giant robot looms directly over them. Bob fires the detached rocket claw directly through the Omnidroid's brain, blowing it up in a glorious fireball. The crowds go wild, giving the supers massive applause and celebrating their heroic comeback. Government agent Dicker arrives to clear their names and handle all the collateral damage smoothly. On the drive home in a luxury limo, Bob compliments Violet's new confident look and open hairstyle. The kids start hyping up each other's crazy moves from the battle like absolute legends. Dash calls it the best family vacation ever, fully embracing their super identity. But Helen checks her voicemails and hears babysitter Carrie losing her mind over baby Jack Jack. Carrie mentions a weird replacement sitter showed up, sending instant red flags through Helen and Bob. They rush into their house only to find Syndrome floating in the air holding Jack Jack hostage. Syndrome gloats that he is stealing the baby to train him into an evil sidekick for revenge. As Syndrome flies up toward his jet, Helen screams for Bob to launch her into the sky. Bob yeets Helen skyward so she can snag Jack Jack before Syndrome gets away. Mid-air, Jack's latent powers suddenly trigger, turning him into a raging fiery demon monster baby. Jack bites and shreds Syndrome, making him drop the baby straight into Helen's waiting arms. Syndrome's cape gets sucked into his jet turbine, resulting in an epic explosion that ends his villain career forever. At a track meet months later, a giant drill bursts through the ground introducing a new villain called the Underminer. And just like that, the Parr family snaps on their superhero masks, fully united and ready for action. That wraps up this absolute masterclass of an animated superhero thriller. If you enjoyed this high-energy story breakdown, make sure to hit that like button right now. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on all notifications so you never miss a recap. Drop a comment down below telling me your favorite superpower, and I will see you legends in the next video.